Our first panel is going to bring together founders who've turned an audacious idea into a groundbreaking project making global waves. Our panel today consists of Juan Mauricio Bonifaci, who's the founder of Grupo Entero and Acton Academy in Guatemala. Rethinking governance for innovation, investment, and freedom, we have Gabriel Delgado Ayau, who's Próspera's co-founder, and Eric Breiman, the founder of Próspera Global, who's pioneering innovative governance models in Honduras. They're going to take us behind the scenes of Próspera's journey, showing us how deep commitment fuels that transformative impact. I think they're all ready with their mics. You guys all ready to go? Yeah? Feeling good? Fantastico. Let's give them a big volcano welcome. Esa!
Hello. To start, I want to ask you to raise your hand if you know about Próspera. Who here knows about Próspera?
That's pretty cool.
Of those that know it, how many have been there? Raise your hand.
Okay.
So we have one. All right. This is great. So welcome, everyone. Imagine this. Imagine a place where you can live with these values. Create value, live freely, trade voluntarily, protect property, earn, don't take, pursue happiness, and where technological progress is good. This is Próspera, a special economic zone in Honduras designed to create prosperity through economic freedom, rule of law, and innovative governance. And I have the pleasure of having two of my heroes here, people who have a lot of courage. I mean, being a founder, usually needs a lot of courage. But being a founder in the startup city space needs a special kind of courage. And these two gentlemen here are as special as they come. So welcome, Eric Breiman, co-founder and CEO of Próspera, and Gabriel Delgado, co-founder of Próspera. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to start off with, this is the power of commitment. So speaking of commitment, what was your original conviction that made you believe this city could exist? And why didn't you let go when the world said, that's impossible?
Well, I'll start it off by a story I heard the other day, which was an elder fish is swimming down the stream, and he sees two young fish swimming up. And the elder fish says, "Hey guys, how's the water?" and passes by. And the two younger fish look at each other and say, "Hey, what's water?" So in essence, what I'm trying to say is that we're swimming in the water of the system, of the regulatory environment, of the governance that we have. We operate within that space. We experience the frustrations of it, but we take it as a given. And so that to me was one of the big motivators in understanding that what was keeping my country, Guatemala, down, most of the region that I could see and experience, Latin America, down with poverty, in spite of having all the elements to flourish, was that we didn't understand that we needed to flush out the water and insert new water into the system, to put it in one way.
For me, the moment dates back to being in school at Babson College and sitting there as a student learning about political economic systems and raising my hand to ask what seemed like a simple question, but actually then led me to where I'm at now, which is, Professor, if you're teaching us that entrepreneurship and venture building is the way in which the world has made progress, the way in which solutions are built, products are delivered, and that it's good and honorable to make profit when the trade is voluntary, why is it that when you tell me that governance services are foundational for all that to happen, the system that delivers that basket of services is fundamentally different? Why is it that on the one hand, private, for-profit, and voluntary is core and at the source of what works, but on the other, we recognize that it's monopolistic, coercive, public and for politics, and we give that system the most important set of services? And the professors didn't know how to answer in a way that was satisfactory to me. The answer went something along the lines of saying, well, you need the politicians to keep the businessmen and women from taking advantage of the consumer. And that fundamentally did not make sense to me. Because even at that young age, I had already had the privilege, but also gone through the agony of starting a small company. And I knew too well that the business leader is by definition at the service, at the mercy of his consumers. It's a beautiful thing to do. It's what Jesus Christ would basically say, serve your neighbor. It is done at scale, but there's no way you can force a consumer to buy your product. Not if you do it voluntarily. Unless, of course, you have some sort of monopoly from government, but then government is the problem, not the solution. And that's what got me started. And I knew that if you broke that barrier somehow, I didn't know how, but I knew if you broke that barrier somehow, it was inevitable that we could unleash tremendous potential in the realm of just how society works.
And conviction gives birth to vision, but sticking with it means facing some storms. What are the darkest moments where it all felt like, it was crumbling down? How did you keep moving?
Well, this is, I think most founders experience a lot of adversity, whether it's internal or external. The operations that they're involved in, or it's the red tape that they have to navigate. I think that I never really thought about how difficult this particular endeavor was going to be, because I thought it was obvious to everybody, and it's not obvious to everybody, or at least not obvious in a way that you can be passionate enough about it that you commit your life to it. But that's how it felt for me when I first discovered that this way of creating, if you want, reform for the flourishing of human beings could be done. I've gone, before Eric and I partnered up, I had gone through 3 iterations of trying to get this project off the ground. We had political activists attack the project, manifest outside of where we were residing at the hotel that we were staying in the country. I had the Supreme Court shut down the project when we already invested a significant amount of money. I've experienced the very aggressive rhetoric of a government, not a state, the temporal government in power, who detest what we're doing because they see it as a challenge to their own power base, attack us mercilessly, call us narco-traffickers, corrupt, call us destroyers. I've had the experience of ill-founded, ill-purposed things said about me and circulated online. And this guy has had about 3x that. So I'll let him talk about that. But it's really amazing the amount of energy that people put up against change, which is what we do as entrepreneurs. We're here to change the status quo. The status quo hates it. And if you're changing the system that enables the status quo to remain, they hate you even more.
Question was the darkest hour, right?
Yes.
I remember perfectly. In fact, I'm going to recreate a little bit of it. It was September 18th, 2020. And I was standing in a platform a little bit higher than this, speaking to a crowd with chairs just like this on the village of Crawfish Rock, where the elders had asked me to come and explain why and whether it was true that our project was there to expropriate their land. That was the lie that was being told by the adversaries as a way to try to get the population against us. And I had received a call earlier that day from a very high-ranking politician, which I will not name because he's still active, threatening us that if we dared answer the call to go to the village to say the truth, that they would arrest me. And so I nevertheless went, and as I was going up to the stage just like this, I could see the national police arriving and the municipal police surrounding the crowd from the back, and a judge from a kangaroo court come up just right there, looking at me like this, threatening, if you say anything, you will be arrested. And at that point, I thought, this is it. I either come here and say what I came to say, or this might never take off. But I was afraid. I was in Honduras with the police surrounding us, being threatened that if I said what I came there to say, I was going to be thrown in jail, not in the US, but in Honduras. That was a moment, a very low moment. I proceeded nevertheless, and the police did come up to stage and tried to arrest me. But fortunately, which is part of the reason why we're still going, many of the people from the village got on that stage as well. And they fought off the police. They hit him on the chest, and they prevented physically that judge from arresting me. And then, of course, we had security personnel present, and the embassy got involved, and it's a longer story after that. But that was, I think, one of the lowest moments in the project.
Scary experiences, my friends. So how do you know when to listen versus when to stand unshakably firm?
When to listen? When to listen and what?
When to listen or when to stand your ground?
Well, I don't think Eric and I would be here if we weren't as stubborn as bulls. I think most entrepreneurs experience that. My entrepreneurial experience has been one that I don't think anything I've ever tried to do has ever been that I've met people that say, oh yeah, let's do it, that's awesome. And unless they're trying to get me in trouble. But with Próspera in particular, I don't think when I really committed to this that I experienced people, general run-of-the-mill people, that you find in life, maybe some of your casual friends that really didn't understand the commitment, who thought that this was possible, really, that thought that this was possible. And that thought that, at least from my perspective, I would have the stamina to face up against a lot of the things that we faced thus far. I think you have to have, you said it really well, so I hope you bring that up in a bit, but you have to have a deep conviction and clarity of vision of what it is that you're trying to achieve, because you need to be a massive optimist to see that vision and to go for it, not knowing whether the lake is full of alligators or sharks, who your enemies are, who were your friends, and to navigate all of that, take each obstacle as it comes. But you can only do that if you're deeply, deeply committed to the vision that you want to see. And I think our vision is the noblest vision of all, which is how do we enable everybody to pursue their own dreams, to fulfill their personal vision, to bring about into reality the thing that they want to see in this world. If you look around this room, everything that exists here only existed at one point in the imagination of an individual just like you or just like us. So we enable that to happen in a very powerful way. We create shortcuts, if you want, that yet uphold all the ethics of value creation to help builders build, to create amazing jobs for people that wouldn't have them otherwise. That vision is what, to me, sustains me in all of the adversity that I have faced in this path, and makes me deeply committed to it.
As you all know, whenever you are in some journey, people have opinions. Some of them might be naysayers, and some of them might be very well intended and they're really trying to help you. It's impossible to gauge unless you have clarity of vision and depth of conviction. If you have that North Star and you're clear about it and you're committed to it, it's easier to remain flexible about the ways in which to get there. There's a difference between the what you want to achieve and the how you can get there. And for me, the filter is something along the lines of, if what this person is telling me is correct and where to pursue it, is it more likely to get us to the objective? Or is this a deviation away from the objective? It's fairly easy to reject the things that are about changing the final objective. And it's much easier to accept with humility that the way to get there might not be what you originally envisioned. That other people have other experiences, and that in any case circumstances have changed, and what made sense 2 years ago might no longer make sense today, but the long-term vision remains.
And conviction, short term is one thing, but Próspera is measured in decades. So how do you sustain faith when the payoff is decades away, guys?
Well, you don't wait decades for the payout. You redefine what it is that you consider to be the payout, you know, and every venture has dark days, and sometimes there are more of those than the highs as you're going through it. But for me, given the nature of what we're building, as Gabe described it, there's just a tremendous amount of satisfaction to feel that we're making, even if it's a small contribution, to the ability of the heroes of society, which are the entrepreneurs, in partnership with scientists often, but in the end, the entrepreneurs are the ones that make it happen. It is extremely gratifying. I don't have to wait a decade. It happens every day. When you see that you can just change the possibility of success, when you expand the probability of them achieving their dreams and therefore solving meaningful problems. So that, to me, is happening already. I don't have to wait decades.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, to me, you know, I think there's two types of entrepreneurs. You pursue money, and then you find that you get trapped in the trap of pursuing money. Then you pursue passion, and if you add enough value, money comes. So I've never done this for the money, though it can be extremely, the return on investment can be very, very powerful. But to me, it's about seeing that person that has a dream and that can now achieve a dream because they're working in an environment that allows for that dream to happen. And the incentives are what's really key. The incentives of the system that we've created are the incentives of builders of creativity. So I think that's what really sustains me. And I want to say one thing. We start off saying Honduras Próspera, and that's where it started. But this vision is not limited to Honduras. This vision is a vision, yes, Próspera in other locations, but more and more of these types of jurisdictions, also by others around the world, because we need ways to change out the water that we're swimming in. And the way that we're trying to change out that water is very counter nature to those that are in charge.
If I can add just something else, because you sparked a thought that actually makes a big difference to me as well. And I think it's universal for all founders, and so hopefully it can be of value to others, especially when the going is tough. To me, you know, the abstract concept of helping founders, obviously, I mean, that's what's deep. But on a day-to-day basis, it's also not just the grandiose things. I mean, we've been so fortunate so that right now in Próspera, I think we're one of the leading jurisdictions in the world doing advanced therapies like gene therapies, okay? And so it's super gratifying to see somebody like Brian Johnson, who can afford to go anywhere in the world, come to Próspera to get some of the best therapies he can get. That's super gratifying. And to see the founder that's building that company have that type of patient is super gratifying. But it is also very gratifying to see Virginia Mann, a woman from the village next door, who now gets to run a school. Or Damari, who now sells food to the guys who are building the towers in our jurisdiction. And to see them with a spark to them of, you know what, there is hope. I can actually earn a living and I can send my kids to school and it might not be so dark after all. That also matters. And so in a general sense for founders, I think Think of who your customers are and think whose lives you're making better, and go talk to them. Get close to the impact that you're having, which need not be grandiose and 10 years into the future. It is happening right now. The customer that bought your widget or who's consuming your service, you're making their lives better. Go talk to them. They will be your Red Bull when your energy is low.
Yeah. Amen. And speaking of long horizons, after years of grinding, there was a special breakthrough moment recently. How did Coinbase investment crystallize this struggle? And what can founders learn about conviction, attracting capital?
So, yeah, Coinbase came in and led our recent bridge round for Próspera. And this round was the first institutional round, and we were very fortunate to get Coinbase and Draper Associates and Boost VC and North Island Ventures, Winklevoss. Like, we got a handful of top-notch institutional investors. But indeed, it started with a very personal connection to Brian Armstrong, who is the CEO of Coinbase. And to his credit, he's always been a visionary. He was very early on crypto, but he went about it in a very professional and long-term thinking way. He understood that crypto, and for him, Bitcoin in particular, but crypto in general, had the potential to transform the financial world. But that if you want to have staying power, if you really want to succeed, you have to remain grounded in the world as is as well. You can't just be so far out into the future where it doesn't work. And that was not easy. It certainly was not the popular thing to do at the time, because anybody in crypto is sort of a renegade to start, and it's like screw the institutions, and a bit of anarchist mentality. And there's value in all of that. Every entrepreneur to some extent needs to have that disruptive capability. But he, I think, had an intuition that he needed to do it in a certain way. And he had to fight against the government. Like, Coinbase was sued left and right. They were trying to shut him down. I think he was curious about what we're doing, first and foremost, because of that visionary sense of being able to predict the future, maybe 10, 20 years into the future. And I'm convinced that what we're doing will go from a bit of a crazy idea to the minimum standard of performance. I think 10, 20, 30 years from now, for sure, we're going to look back when new cities are being created, and we're going to wonder, why isn't it that we're not bidding out the governance service? Right now, we bid out the roads, and that's great. But why aren't we bidding out who's going to do the governance of that city? It's going to look like the obvious thing that should have always been the case. I think Brian intuitively gets that. And so when he reached out to me, it was initially just to understand the space, what we were doing, how we were going about it. And candidly, it was a personal connection. I think he understood that I shared deeply similar convictions, that while you should pursue with passion transformative change, you got to do it with both feet on the ground, understanding the way the world is, and thinking beyond just what's cool at the moment. We could have launched our project just talking about all the cool ways in which we're going to disrupt the world, and we would not have been where we are today. You have to understand that if you're able to be plugged into the world as is, you actually have a chance to succeed. So it started with a personal relationship, and then it very quickly became an opportunity for investment. And then, something changed. We had negotiated our deal, very attractive terms, and then the Supreme Court of Honduras declares the project unconstitutional retroactively. And obviously no money had hit the bank. There was nothing binding in the deal yet. But I think in some ways that actually increased Brian's conviction because, and he told me this, he said, Eric, I remember some years ago when something similar happened with Coinbase, and we almost failed because the government had taken a position, I don't remember the details, about how crypto was illegal and money laundering and all the stupid stuff that they have said over the years. And it was because of some investors that believed in me that we're here today. I want to be that for Próspera. And so to his credit, he was a visionary. He had the courage. He put the money. And then, we had several other investors sort of on the side looking. And when he said yes, everybody jumped in, and we're here today, and we're very well capitalized because of it.
It really is an amazing story, and this guy deserves all the credit because he was on that like a fly on, you know what. But I want to say something about fundraising for this project because it has been, I had this impression that we needed this so badly in Latin America that I was going to be able to raise a lot of capital from Latin America into this project and then be able to multiply it in different places. Most of the money has come from US investors. Most of the passion and belief has come from US investors. I feel that we as Latin American investors or family offices, et cetera, sometimes lack that massive conviction that US investors do have who are willing to take a serious bet on something as uncharacteristic as what Próspera is. And to the fundraising team, which is Eric and another associate of ours called Joel, they systemized the approach. How many people did they talk to, Eric? 1,000 people for one investor or something like that?
Yeah, about almost 1,000 per investor. Yeah, it was
So
a
about
very,
1,000
very big
1,000
effort in the
people per
beginning.
investor. And the people that invested were the ones that could see and share the vision that we had. So, and mostly Americans. Now we're getting interest from Latin America. Now that things are more, you know, and so it's good and it's bad. It's good because, you know, hey, we're not taking that much risk. It's bad because the catalyst projects that need to happen in our own region to lift up our own region aren't being funded, supported, pushed by the funds, the family offices in our own region. And I think we need to think about that. We need to think about what type of area we want to live in and how we're going to participate in making it happen.
From headlines to hardlines, behind every milestone are the personal sacrifices. And what personal costs have you guys paid? And were they essential for this world-changing impact that Próspera is having and will have?
Look, I've been very fortunate that my wife is 100% on board with this long-term vision. But if that had not been the case, I think our marriage and our family would have suffered tremendously. Instead, and I sometimes get a bit emotional when I think about it, but instead is when my kids, I have a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, and an 11-year-old, and this has been true, I would have told you this 7 years ago. They find a coin on the ground, and they'll pick it up and they'll give it to me and say, "Dad, this is for the city. Go ahead and put it in the piggy bank." So, you know, we're all in it. We're 100% in it. So that has not been a casualty. On the contrary, it's been a source of endurance. But I will say, to some extent, my sanity, my ego, you know, my sense of self, I've sometimes, you know, really questioned if I'm just crazy and if I'm wasting my life. I've been fortunate to be smart. I could be doing anything. I feel like I could be doing anything in my life, and I chose to do this. And so it's you know, at moments I've really doubted, and when you live with doubt, it's tough to wake up and face your team, your investors, and keep pushing. But there's a deeper conviction, and you asked me last night when we were preparing for this, and I told you, I think, look, the main thing for anybody is that you gotta. The moment of truth is not when the going gets tough. That's what people think. It's like, oh, well, that's the moment of truth, when the going gets tough. And I think not, actually. I think the moment of truth is way earlier, is deciding to do something with your life that is worth it. And so worth it that it's actually worth failing at. And this is how I think about it. I said, is this something that I'm willing to take on, and that it would have been worth it in retrospect, even if in the end it fails? And if you can find something, whatever that is for you, that is worth doing, even if in the end it fails, then when the moment gets tough and you face the risk of failure, it's not that it's irrelevant. You're going to have to, you know, perhaps face a fearful moment like we all do, and for me it was different than in most ventures. But you're going to go back to that moment when you decided that it was worth failing at. And then it doesn't matter. Then it's just a question of, well, obviously nobody wants to fail, but it's not about whether it can fail or not. It's about how do I reduce the chances because it's worth doing anyways. So I would say that's perhaps a compound answer to your question.
You know, for me, I think about the hard journey, and I think growth only comes through the hard journey. So facing all the adversity that we faced, that I faced, has been very edifying to me. So I'm grateful for it. But I will say that I think the biggest personal sacrifice is for the last 8 years or so, my life disappeared except to focus on this for the most part. And it's amazing because I would see friends and I would see people that, you know, I'd been involved with in different things, and they would think I was living in Honduras 100% of the time, and I wasn't. I was living in my apartment and in Honduras for the most part, all the time. But I think that it's easy to get sucked in if you're really passionate about what you're doing to the point where everything else becomes irrelevant. And there's good and bad to that. The good, I think, is that I think of legacy as something very important. What can I do that's beyond me to contribute to my community, to my tribe, to the world? I want that to exist. I have a great example in my grandfather who founded UFM. In that, he created something that has endured way beyond his own life. So that is worth it to me, and the sacrifices are worth it to me. Probably the biggest one that I will mention, though, is the amplification of my imposter syndrome. So I'm not sure how many of you understand or know about imposter syndrome, but I have a massive amount of it. And it's only been through really looking at what we have achieved and understanding my role in it that I've been able to assume a little bit of what my value contribution has been to it. So yeah.
And finally, what's your message to the next generation of bold founders in Latin America? If a young founder feels their dream is too crazy, what's your message?
My message is you really should connect with something that you can look at and envision and think, even if the going is so tough, I will still do it. And that's what you need to go for, because it's going to get that tough. It's going to get that ugly. You're going to lose relationships over it. I mean, all kinds of things. You can fail multiple times. And then make sure it's a big vision, because you're going to suck up 8 to 12 hours a day, 15 hours a day doing it, whether it's big or small. So you may as well focus on something massive, something big, something transformative.
I would say it might be too crazy. So over-invest up front on making sure that you have enough conviction and that it's something worth failing at, but also that it's something for which there is a true comparative advantage, that it's really unique and differentiated. And Latin America has a lot of challenges for starting a company is hard anywhere in the world, but here you don't have all the networks and the access to capital that you would say in Silicon Valley. So find the niche of comparative advantage. There are many industries, there are many ways of doing business here where you're actually better off than you would be in Silicon Valley. Try to identify that overlap, and don't just go for it because it's exciting. Do your diligence, over-invest up front, make sure it's visceral and it's worth failing at.
And perfect timing. Thank you so much, and please give me a big, big applause to these founders.
Thank you.